The story took place in Singapore. In the online esports CTF final match, the SP team and the KK team were in a fierce competition. In the end, the team led by KNK Han Shangyan lost. KK was a winning general in the esports circle. This time they lost to professional players who have been in the field for many years. All members of the SP team were celebrating enthusiastically, but the morale of the entire team led by Han Shangyan was low. After the game, the new members made a loud noise because of mistakes in the field, and the calm and steady Han Shangyan told them to shut up. He told the players that there were only champions and trash in the game. If you don't win, keep your mouth shut and sum up your mistakes. Shenzhe and others began to realize their mistakes. They wanted to keep Han Shangyan, but Han Shangyan had already got off the bus. Han Shangyan, a young and mature man with lofty aspirations, has a tenacious will since he was a child. At this moment, he was going to the supermarket to buy some red envelopes and snacks to boost his morale. Tong Nian was a second graduate student majoring in computer science. She was cute. She was a ghost talent in computing. She has hundreds of thousands of fans and over 1 million video views. She was called Her Royal Highness Squid by her fans. At this time, she was choosing some snacks in the small supermarket. Han Shangyan was just a name to her, but life was very magical, and soon her peach blossom luck came. At this time, Tong Nian was helping his cousin on duty in the internet cafe. It happened that Han Shangyan wanted to go online to relax after buying the red envelopes. When Tong Nian raised her head to apply for the network card for this customer, Han Shangyan's big eyes really attracted her. Feeling that there were so many beautiful little stars and colorful bubbles surrounding her in front of her, she was stunned. Han Shangyan felt strange seeing her unnatural expression. He took away his ID card and left. Tong Nian couldn't help but look away from him. So she made a very beautiful bento and wanted to send it to the court, but halfway through, she was told by his cousin that it was sold by the internet cafe, and he asked for 30 yuan. Han Shangyan readily accepted and asked for another bottle of juice. Seeing that her carefully designed approach was destroyed by her cousin, Tong Nian didn't want to deal with this uninterested cousin. The cousin finally agreed to exchange for Han Shangyan's opportunity to come here every day with a 1-week waiver. In order to get Han Shangyan's WeChat, Tong Nian changed the name of the WeChat public account of her own name, and asked her cousin to use her mobile phone to try to add him as a friend. After discovering that the circle of friends of Han Shangyan was all about network security, in order to find a common topic, she quickly learned from friends who knew about it. On the way back to the club early the next morning, Han Shangyan remembered his original intention of establishing KK, that he must train these children to become talents, but the children in the dormitory were talking about whether their teacher was going to find flowers and ask willows. The sudden arrival of Han Shangyan caught the gossip team by surprise. It was raining heavily, and Han Shangyan forced the team members to run for 5 kilometers in the rain. Han Shangyan asked his cousin Wu Bai to withdraw money and give the team members a red envelope of 5,000 yuan each, and then take everyone to a feast. In school, the senior had a crush on Tong Nian, and in order to get close to her, he deliberately approached Yaya, which made Yaya very embarrassed. In order to consolidate the strength of the team, Han Shangyan took the car to find his former teammate Xiaomi. Xiaomi said that he was physically limited and no longer able to play games, but he could recommend someone to fight with him. This person is Oh Chang, who used to be from the SP team. Han Shangyan persuaded Ouyang to join his team, but was unsuccessful. At this time, Solo, the person in charge of SP Team China, came. Han Shangyan had been having arguments with him before and left immediately. Solo sat on the table and asked Oh Chang to join his team. He also said that their old friend Ai Ching also joined his team to be the team leader. After all, Han Shangyan also asked him to join his KK team just now. Now Ouyang was in a dilemma: which team should he join? Solo was furious. In the end, Ouyang finally made the decision to become a member of SP, which made Solo finally smile. Solo came to Han Shangyan, but Han Shangyan seemed to dislike him very much. After all, he was still brooding about the contradictions with him in previous years. Solo told Han Shangyan that now Ouyang had decided to join his team, he will definitely train him well. After talking about this, Solo stood up and left. At this time, Han Shangyan's thoughts couldn't help but quickly immersed in memories. Back then, the Solo team formed by himself and Solo and others won the championship in a competition and was about to enter the World Championship, but unexpectedly, Han Shangyan seemed a little annoyed, and announced in front of everyone that he was leaving the team and retired. Han Shangyan left the arena. Solo caught up with him dissatisfiedly, and angrily asked him why he was making such a decision. But Han Shangyan reluctantly did not want to answer. That night, Solo's team sat on the rooftop and drank stuffy wine. When Oh Chang saw Han Shangyan quitted, he couldn't help but have the idea of retiring. The scene was already in chaos. Han Shangyan came to them at this time. Solo grabbed his collar angrily and fought with him. In the chaos, others pulled the Solo down, and Han Shangyan said reproachfully, he knew it was all his fault, but he really had no choice. At the airport, Han Shangyan was about to leave. Solo knew that there was no way to undo all this. He finally said a word, so that even if Han Shangyan left the Solo team, he would no longer be the captain of other teams. Han Shangyan dragged his luggage and came to Xiaomi and others again, and said his final goodbyes to them. Using the surveillance video of the internet cafe, Tong Nian learned that the account name Han Shangyan had previously logged into the game was called Grunt, so he excitedly found Tong Nian and asked her to invite Grunt to play a game in the game. Then she could get the person she was looking for. Tong Nian happily followed this method and found out that the owner of the account was named Shenja. It's a pity that Shenja joined the opponent's team just after she was pulled into the game, which gave her no chance to talk to him at all. Tong Nian asked her to walk to Shenja's side and use the public screen to talk to him, but not long after the start, she was killed by a passerby. This made her immediately drop her head and be discouraged. What Tong Nian didn't expect was that even though it was Han Shangyan who she wanted to find, Han Shangyan had only used Shenja's account to play the game once before, and she had already regarded Shenja, who had logged into the game, as Han Shangyan. After the game was over, Shenja put down his earphones and said to the others, he would never be able to bring the person he was playing with into the game in the future. It seemed that she must be a child, and her level was too bad. In the evening, Han Shangyan stayed at his home and was sadly immersed in the memories of the past. After all, he and Solo spent such an unforgettable time together back then. Before long, he couldn't help sitting beside a computer, ready to play games again. Coincidentally, Tong Nian also used the computer at home to surf the internet at this time, and encountered Han Shangyan using Shenja's account to play games. So she immediately joined in happily. However, in the game, she appeared to be a special dish, and many teammates couldn't help but complain. Han Shangyan had to take good care of her in the game. That night, Tong Nian had a good game with Han Shangyan. The next morning, Tong Nian proudly told Tong Nian that she had had a good time with Han Shangyan yesterday. Tong Nian told Mother Tong and others that she was going to Guangzhou to participate in an offline music event. Han Shangyan came to a biscuit stall and bought a few biscuits. At this time, his mind was immersed in memories again. Back then, he and Solo's teammates came here. The team's leader, Solo, had to ask his teammates to buy biscuits to satisfy their hunger because of the team's financial difficulties. During the conversation, Solo and Han Shangyan encouraged each other that they must win a world championship in the future to realize their true dreams. Han Shangyan bought the biscuits, and soon came to the KK team, urging the players to get up to participate in training. Tong Nian contacted Han Shangyan online, saying that she was going to Guangzhou in the afternoon and that she could no longer play games with him these days. In the conference room of the KK team, the players carefully analyzed the playing characteristics of all the members of the solo team, and also talked about the tragic story of Han Shangyan's departure from the team, which made everyone sigh. In the afternoon, Tong Nian came to the airport, but unexpectedly found that Han Shangyan and the others had also come to take the flight, which made her very surprised. Soon, she and Han Shangyan arrived in Guangzhou. Soon after getting off the plane, Tong Nian hurried to his colleague Squid Xiaoyu and threw herself into work nervously. After the day's event, Tong Nian inadvertently asked Squid Xiaoyu about any game competitions nearby. Squid Xiaoyu recalled that she had heard from her husband that there was indeed a cybersecurity competition held nearby. This made Tong Nian jump up and down with joy when she heard it, and decided to look for Han Shangyan immediately. There, Shenzhou of the KK team was injured, but he still decided to continue to play. Soon, Tong Nian came to the gate of the stadium, but unfortunately the tickets were already sold out. Just then, Ai Qing came out. Tong Nian said that she liked Shenzhou very much since she still regarded Han Shangyan as Shenzhou. As soon as Ai Qing heard this, she immediately agreed to let her in to find Shenzhou. Tong Nian successfully entered the arena, where the game was over, and KK had achieved good results. Tong Nian was happy to find that Han Shangyan was sitting near her, so she immediately took her hand and wanted to talk to him. But she didn't know what to say for a while. So, she casually said that he won the lottery in the internet cafe. But Han Shangyan didn't want to pay attention to her, he immediately left with a flick of his hand. Han Shangyan came to the backstage and found that Shenzhou was very ill, but Shenzhou said that he was fine and insisted that everyone should not worry about him. Tong Nian came to the hotel and wanted to find Han Shangyan, but unfortunately the staff there didn't want her in at all. She had to leave with a sign in support of Shenzhou given to her by a fan. A member of KK happened to find her at this time, and determined that she was Han Shangyan's woman, and decided to introduce her to Han Shangyan immediately. After entering the hotel, Tong Nian came to Shenzhou, who was sick with his back to her. Tong Nian comforted him well. But when Shenzhou turned around, she was stunned again. Why isn't this Shenzhou the Han Shangyan she met in the internet cafe? The funny thing is that Han Shangyan just walked in at this time, and the team members introduced to him that Tong Nian was Han Shangyan's woman and their sister-in-law. At this time, Tong Nian was holding a sign supporting Shenzhou, and it became difficult for her to deal with Han Shangyan at once. Outside the house, Han Shangyan asked Tong Nian what was going on. Tong Nian thought embarrassedly that she never really told him that she had fallen in love with him secretly, and that she had followed him here, so she said that it was all just a coincidence. However, Han Shangyan didn't believe it at all, and said that there was really some hidden relationship between her and Shenzhou, and now Tong Nian became even more embarrassed. At this time, KK's teammates still believed that Tong Nian was Han Shangyan's woman, so they asked her to go to a celebration banquet and said that this was what Han Shangyan meant. A partner found Han Shangyan puzzled and said that Shenzhou didn't really find a girlfriend. Han Shang said that he didn't understand it, maybe Tong Nian really liked Shenzhou, but she wouldn't say anything in front of him. Ling Shan, a member of KK, invited Tong Nian to the car, and politely introduced her to the other team members. He also said that she was Han Shangyan's girlfriend and his sister-in-law. Many team members were busy calling her sister-in-law, which made her blushing immediately. Wu Bai also got into the car at this time, and everyone booed for a while, saying that his brother had made a girlfriend without telling him, but Wu Bai calmly said that this was not an abnormal thing. Han Shangyan came to the hotel, and the female team leader of KK introduced him to the solo side, but when Han Shangyan saw the solo, his face turned down again, and he refused to sit down and talk to him. Soon, he turned and left. Han Shangyan and the female team leader returned to the team by car. During the conversation between the two, Han Shangyan's thoughts couldn't help being immersed in the memories of the past again. Back then, the members of Team Solo won the championship in Beijing, and everyone couldn't help celebrating. When he came to the team station, Lingshan excitedly introduced Tong Nian to KK's teammates. Tong Nian asked them about the masked man she met in the car before. The team members told her that his name was Wu Bai, their captain and Han Shangyan's cousin. The female team leader came to find Tong Nian and brought her to the door of Han Shangyan. At this time, Han Shangyan pushed the door open and said that he wanted to invite her in alone. Tong Nian couldn't help but hesitate immediately, thinking that he would have any intentions on her by doing this. Han Shangyan had to say coldly, he only gave her 10 minutes, and let her think about it herself. Tong Nian thought about it for a while, and then she mustered up her courage and walked in. But when she went in, she was stunned again. It turned out that there was another person in the room, and he was Shenzhe. Han Shangyan asked, she must confess her relationship with Shenzhe to him now. At this moment, Tong Nian was speechless. It's still Shenzhe who was smart. After analysis, he said side by side, the person Tong Nian likes was Han Shangyan, right? It's probably him who she came to look for this time. Tong Nian blushed when she heard this. Shenzhe left alone. Han Shangyan pushed Tong Nian to the wall step by step, and asked her if she really liked him. Tong Nian had no choice but to evade it. Just at this moment, a phone call came and resolved her embarrassment. On the phone, a radio host asked her a lot of questions on behalf of her fans, and asked her what type of people she likes. Tong Nian answered one by one, and finally said that what she liked was the cold and cool kind, and all the descriptions point to Han Shangyan. The call was finally over. Han Shangyan asked, shouldn't she have eaten at this time, and he planned to invite her to have a meal, which made Tong Nian's heart burst into joy immediately. As a result, when they walked into the elevator, they happened to meet Lingshan, a member of KK. This time, Lingshan was even more sure that Han Shangyan was a pair with Tong Nian. Han Shangyan and Tong Nian came to the restaurant. At this time, Lingshan also came to the nearby dining table. He excitedly told the team members next to him that he had already encountered Tong Nian and Han Shangyan getting along in the elevator. Seeing how they were whispering to the side, Han Shangyan called them over in a hurry. All the team members came over happily, and called Tong Nian a sister-in-law. This made Tong Nian blush even more. The team members chatted with Tong Nian enthusiastically again and asked about her living and working conditions. At this time, Han Shangyan, who was next to her, couldn't bear it any longer, saying that they could no longer call Tong Nian a sister-in-law. But the team members only promised it on the surface. Back in the team members happily discussed Tong Nian's affairs again. Soon Han Shangyan came in again, and he stopped them with a cold expression. Han Shangyan called Wu Bai out. Wu Bai took out his mobile phone and asked Han Shangyan to call his grandfather. As soon as he answered the phone, Grandpa Han was very angry. He said that Han Shangyan was too disobedient. In addition, he will come to Shanghai soon, and he was going to have a girlfriend for him. Tong Nian stayed in her room, feeling restless, and soon she turned on the computer and looked up information about Han Shangyan. What surprised her was that Han Shangyan was the captain of the famous solo team back then, and he was a man who had won countless honors. It was a pity that he later announced his retirement at the peak of his life, and only recently chose to return in a low-key manner. Tong Nian came to find Blueberry's non-stop. As a result, Blueberry's husband came over not long after entering the house. When he saw the photo of Han Shangyan shown by Tong Nian, he immediately cried out excitedly. After all, Han Shangyan was the male esports god he has admired for many years. However, Tong Nian said that she wanted him to reveal some of Han Shangyan's emotional experiences. Blueberry's husband recalled, it seemed that Han Shangyan had never had a girlfriend, but Ai Ching once had a scandal with him for a while. Blueberry and her husband asked about the relationship between Tong Nian and Han Shangyan, but Tong Nian was speechless again. Blueberry's husband told her a message that Han Shangyan was going to have another competition tomorrow. Why didn't she take the opportunity to visit him again? This made Tong Nian jump up and down with joy. In the room, Wu Bai said to Han Shangyan that he thought Tong Nian was a good girl. Han Shangyan said unequivocally, in fact, Wu Bai should have seen long ago that he has nothing to do with Tong Nian. He probably didn't say these before to avoid embarrassing the scene. The next day, the day of the competition finally came. Tong Nian and Blueberry came to the gate of the arena together, but regretted not buying the tickets. Soon, Han Shangyan brought his team members to the arena, inspiring them to fight hard in the next game. Soon, the people from SP also came to the arena, and Tong Nian recognized at a glance that Ai Ching was the one who brought her to the arena last time. KK's people entered the arena. Ling Shan and others coaxed to Han Shangyan again. Their sister-in-law Tong Nian had already come to the gate of the arena. How could they not invite her in? Han Shangyan couldn't help the noise of the team members, so he had to give a gesture of agreement. KK's team member Dai Feng and his team members came to the door and invited Tong Nian and Blueberry to enter. As soon as she entered the arena, Blueberry was amazed. After all, they were all famous people. During the conversation, Tong Nian inadvertently revealed that she and Han Shangyan had only met 3 times, which surprised Dai Feng immediately. After all, Han Shangyan's efficiency in chasing girls was too high, so he had only met 3 times and let Tong Years became his girlfriend. Dai Feng came to the other teammates and excitedly told them that Han Shangyan had only met Tong Nian 3 times to catch up. Han Shangyan called Tong Nian to his side, saying that his team members liked her very much, and he would invite her into the arena together after 10 minutes to let her watch the free game. Han Shangyan picked up the phone and picked up the game to pass the boring time. Tong Nian said uneasily, why didn't he explain to his team members? After all, she was not his girlfriend. Han Shangyan bluntly said whether she really liked him, but he didn't want to get himself into unnecessary trouble. Tong Nian gave a positive answer, and after obtaining Han Shangyan's consent, she was going to explain to the team members immediately, but Han Shangyan thought about it for a while and decided she could wait until the game was over. Han Shangyan brought Tong Nian into the battlefield. Tong Nian accidentally saw Ai Ching, and Han Shangyan introduced that she was the leader of SP. Tong Nian thought that Ai Ching might really be Han Shangyan's lover, so she could only say that she should leave immediately, so as not to disturb Han Shangyan and Ai Ching to get along. However, Han Shangyan said that the information Tong Nian obtained was outrageous. After all, Ai Ching had nothing to do with him. Soon, the members of SP and KK were on stage, ready to compete in a cybersecurity competition. Ai Ching, Han Shangyan and others sat in the audience and watched their team members nervously throw themselves into the game. After a while, SP's team took the lead and won the first game, but after a while, KK's people fought back again, and Wu Bai took back the game. The battle became more intense. Blueberry called Tong Nian out on an excuse. She suggested Tong Nian not to take the initiative to confess to Han Shangyan, but to attract Han Shangyan and let him take the initiative to show his love to her. At the venue, the game continued, and the SPs fought hard and finally won another round, winning the whole game. Han Shangyan got up and left with an unhappy face. Tong Nian found Han Shangyan, but Han Shangyan said coldly, she should explain herself and their relationship to the team members according to the previous agreement. Tong Nian hesitated in her heart. Han Shangyan asked her to practice the explanation process in front of him first, but Tong Nian was speechless. Han Shangyan sighed and said, "Forget it." Afterwards, he pointed to the nearby team members and said that he wanted to train those children into adults, and now he had no plans to fall in love. She should leave here right now and never see him again. KK's team leader told Han Shangyan that he felt that Tong Nian was indeed a good girl. But Han Shangyan still looked lazy. KK's players stayed in the team. Ling Shan explained to the other team members. At this time, the truth of what happened back then finally came to light. Back then, Solo and Ai Ching were lovers, but at that time a third person intervened, which eventually led to Solo's departure from the team. At that time, the Solo team was about to enter the World Series to win the championship, and it was because of Solo that the team was finally disbanded. This made Han Shangyan feel bad about Solo. During this period, everyone revealed another secret. It turned out that the female leader of their team was the mother of Solo's daughter. Han Shangyan thought that the team would go abroad to compete in the future, so he invited a foreigner to give foreign language lessons to the team members. Tong Nian told Mother Tong that she was going out with her friend Zheng Hui. Mother Tong was excited and said that Zheng Hui should be her boyfriend. However, Tong Nian told her that she was only going to attend a science and technology lecture with him. Soon, Tong Nian came to the university and went to the podium to tell her classmates something related to artificial intelligence. The lecture was over. Tong Nian packed up her things and prepared to leave the school, but Zheng Hui quickly chased after her. He had always liked Tong Nian, but he didn't know how to express himself. He said that he had a project for her to join after the Chinese New Year. If Tong Nian joined, it actually meant making her his girlfriend. Tong Nian naturally didn't understand the meaning of it, so she responded with a few words and left. This made Yaya, who was on the side, jumped in a hurry when she saw it, saying how could Zheng Hui be so useless again. In the restaurant, Tong Nian was worried about Han Shangyan again. Yaya wanted to help her right away, but at this time Tong Nian buried her head even lower because she felt that she really couldn't do anything. Tong Nian came to KK's residence, just wanted to walk in the door, but felt embarrassed, so she had to turn around and leave. Unfortunately, Han Shangyan was returning from outside at this time, but unfortunately she didn't see him again. Han Shangyan came to the team and sent New Year's red envelopes to the players one by one, wishing them happiness in the upcoming new year. All the team members took the red envelopes, and they were all very happy. Ling Shan and the others were busy posting New Year's red papers around the team, but Han Shangyan arrived at this time, urging them to pack up and go home. Soon, Han Shangyan came to Aunt Zhao, who was in charge of hygiene in the team, gave her a big red envelope, and asked her to stop busy. However, Aunt Zhao insisted on cleaning, and said that she had received great care from Han Shangyan. Shenzhe and the others were about to leave. Before leaving, they revealed a message to Han Shangyan. It turned out that Dai Feng's parents were getting divorced. Dai Feng didn't want to go back, so he became homeless. Han Shangyan came to Dai Feng's side, and found that Dai Feng was using the computer in the team's training room to watch movies illegally. Han Shangyan gave him a good lesson. After that, he told him to pack up quickly to go home with him for the new year. This made Dai Feng stunned immediately after hearing this. However, he came to Han Shangyan's house with Han Shangyan and Wu Bai, and when he saw the neat and beautiful room, he immediately cried out excitedly. Han Shangyan asked him to do household chores at home, which would be regarded as his accommodation fee here. Dai Feng rolled up his sleeves excitedly and ran to the kitchen immediately to prepare a hearty dinner for them. Soon, Dai Feng quickly prepared the meal, but when Han Shangyan saw the chicken drumsticks on the table, his face was startled, and he didn't want to eat any more. This made Dai Feng confused. He didn't know the reason for this. In the living room, Han Shangyan was once again immersed in his memories of the past. Back then, Han Shangyan met Solo at the station. Solo introduced his girlfriend Ai Qing to Han Shangyan for the first time. Soon, Solo took Han Shangyan to a courtyard in a hutong, which was the training ground of the Solo team. Solo introduced Xiaomi and Oh Chang to him. Since then, Han Shangyan officially joined their team. During the conversation, Han Shangyan was motivated and decided to immediately start a cybersecurity competition with Ai Qing. If he lost, he would be willing to take on the housework in the team forever. It's a pity that Han Shangyan really lost in the last competition and had to admit it. In the evening, a sumptuous white-cut chicken dinner was ready, and Solo rewarded the players with the chicken legs to encourage them to play well in the future. The next day, the players all got up, but they were troubled by the fact that they had been sleeping in the same small bedroom the night before. Ai Qing jokingly said to Han Shangyan that he should introduce a girlfriend for him, but Han Shangyan had no intention of this. It turned out that he was preparing to look for a real estate in the city at this time so that the team could move to a better location. After a period of time, Team Solo participated in a cybersecurity competition, but the poor living conditions affected their physical fitness, and they lost miserably. Even the fans who came to watch the game couldn't bear to scold them. Soon, they came to the sponsor Lin again. At this time, Lin was already very dissatisfied with them, and even planned to end the sponsorship contract with them, and threatened to take away what he provided to them, including the team dormitory. In the bar, both Solo and Han Shangyan were a little frustrated with the current situation of the team, but after a discussion, Solo encouraged Han Shangyan and said that although their current situation was unfavorable, he still had to cheer up. In addition, he planned to move the team to Shanghai. After all, that is the hot spot for online competition. Soon after, Solo's people moved to Shanghai. Han Shangyan paid for it out of his own pocket and provided the team with a large venue as a training base, which made everyone smile. Solo said in front of everyone, if there was no Han Shangyan's help, he was afraid that the team would have to be disbanded. Han Shangyan heard the sound outside the door. He opened the door and found that Dai Feng had secretly prepared 2 more dishes and put them outside his door, and ran away. But unfortunately Dai Feng accidentally fell on the stairs. But he stubbornly said that he was fine at all. Later, he explained that he saw Han Shangyan had no appetite just now, so he cooked 2 more dishes. What he didn't know was that Han Shangyan had no appetite when he saw chicken drumsticks in the dining room, just because he saw the scene and remembered what happened to the Solo team. Dai Feng was ordered to come to the airport to meet Grandpa Han. Soon, he took Grandpa Han to Han Shangyan's side. Grandpa Han reprimanded Han Shangyan dissatisfiedly, saying why Han Shangyan didn't go to the airport to pick him up in person just now. After that, his facial expression changed, and he happily talked to Wu Bai. Soon, Han Shangyan and the others brought Grandpa Han back home, and Dai Feng happily talked to Grandpa Han. After all, he knew that coaxing the old man well was an important task for him. When Tong Nian asked about Tong Nian and Han Shangyan, Tong Nian looked discouraged. Tong Nian joked that this was not bad, maybe it was because Han Shangyan felt too old to be embarrassed to be with her. This made Tong Nian immediately angry when she heard it. Soon, Tong Nian secretly turned on the computer again and played the video of Han Shangyan. It was discovered by Tong Nian again, which made Tong Nian a big blush. Grandpa Han took Han Shangyan to a house and planned to introduce Tong Nian's sister Yuejiao, who was Tong Nian's cousin, as his girlfriend. Interestingly, Tong Nian also came over at this time, which surprised Han Shangyan. At this time, Tong Nian pretended not to know Han Shangyan and greeted him. While chatting, Grandpa Han saw that Tong Nian was very beautiful, and his heart moved, thinking that his grandson Wu Bai didn't have a girlfriend, so he said that he would introduce Tong Nian to Wu Bai in a few days. Han Shangyan and the others went out to the hotel for dinner in the car, and Tong Nian finally came out. Hearing that Han Shangyan was here for a blind date this time, she couldn't help but be startled. Han Shangyan had told her before that he didn't want to fall in love, but it turned out that it was just an excuse to refuse her. Yuejiao walked to Han Shangyan's car, but Han Shangyan seemed to ignore her, which made Yuejiao very angry. After all, she was introduced to him on a blind date today. How could he be so rude? Then, after getting into the car, Yuejiao asked about Han Shangyan's occupation, and Han Shangyan replied casually that he was just playing with the computer, which made Yuejiao roll her eyes unhappily when she heard it, and said that he was not doing his job properly. However, Tong Nian on the side was a little unconvinced and defended for Han Shangyan. This made Yuejiao felt at a loss for a while. She said why she felt that Tong Nian had an inexplicable relationship with Han Shangyan. The car finally arrived at the door of the hotel. When Yuejiao saw her mother, she was very unhappy, saying that she had already inspected it, and Han Shangyan was too crazy. The two then walked into the hotel. Han Shangyan and Tong Nian also got out of the car. Han Shangyan told Tong Nian that she didn't need to pretend that she didn't know him just now. The reason why he told their relationship to the others was to not embarrass them. And soon after Wu Bai came over, Wu Bai would definitely tell everything. Yuejiao's mother pulled Tong Nian out of the room and asked her if Han Shangyan was really a person who didn't have a job as Yuejiao said. However, when Tong Nian heard it, she evaded it, and walked away on the pretext that someone was calling. After a while, the banquet was finally held, and Wu Bai also came over. Han Shangyan told Wu Bai that now Grandpa Han was about to introduce Tong Nian as his girlfriend. Soon, Grandpa Han introduced Wu Bai to everyone at the banquet, and insisted on calling Tong Nian to sit beside Wu Bai. But at this time, Wu Bai said simply and neatly that he had known Tong Nian for a long time, and many people were saying that she was Han Shangyan's girlfriend. This made everyone startled all of a sudden, saying how could things suddenly turn out like this? Wasn't Han Shangyan introduced to Yuejiao on a blind date? Han Shangyan didn't want the scene to become too embarrassing, so he had to go to Tong Nian's side immediately, and casually said that Tong Nian was his girlfriend, but things were too rushed before, and he didn't have time to tell it to everyone. After Han Shangyan settled down with everyone, he secretly pulled Wu Bai outside, and accused him dissatisfiedly. How could he be so disloyal just now, tell everything to the others, and let himself fall into the big pit? However, Wu Bai was plausible, saying that it was Han Shangyan who did not pay attention to loyalty firstly. Han Shangyan was called back to the room again. At this time, Grandpa Han was very excited. He was very happy that Han Shangyan could get a girlfriend like Tong Nian. During the banquet, Han Shangyan secretly explained to Tong Nian, and after this incident, they could take the opportunity to find another reason to announce to everyone that they had broken up. After the banquet, Han Shangyan drove Tong Nian home. In the car, Han Shangyan asked Tong Nian when the two should announce their breakup to everyone. Tong Nian's face was startled. It was inappropriate to say it too fast. They could talk about it later. In the room, Tong's mother said to Tong's father with an unhappy expression. Han Shangyan was much older than Tong Nian. But Tong's father didn't take it seriously, and said that everything should go with the flow. When Tong Nian came home, Tong's father asked her about Zheng Hui's current situation and said that she should bring him and other teammates home to see if there is a chance. When Han Shangyan returned home, he found that Dai Feng was stealing noodles in the kitchen. He asked where Wu Bai had gone, and Dai Feng replied that he had already returned to his room to rest. Han Shangyan then instructed him to come to the room soon and let him see how fast his computer operating was. Dai Feng was dissatisfied, and said why he still didn't forget about training during the new year, but under the urging of Han Shangyan, he had to agree bitterly. Tong Nian sent a message to Han Shangyan, but he didn't reply, so she couldn't help feeling melancholy. On the other side, it was 12 o'clock in the night, and it was already the new year. Dai Feng came to Han Shangyan and congratulated him on a happy new year. The next morning, Grandpa Han came to Han Shangyan's room and knocked loudly on the door to urge him to get up. He also said that Wu Bai got up early and went for a run. Han Shangyan had to get up and went outside. But the funny thing was that when he came there, he just sat there and played games. Wu Bai, who was running by, asked him what was going on. Han Shangyan said it was all Wu Bai's fault. If it wasn't for him, why would he have to fall outside again, and ruined his rare vacation? When Han Shangyan returned home, Grandpa Han accused him dissatisfiedly, saying that he saw yesterday that Han Shangyan didn't care about Tong Nian. In addition, he would take Tong Nian home for the Chinese New Year today, so he should prepare well himself. Han Shangyan had to go to Tong Nian's house as a last resort, and wanted to bring her home. But Dai Feng told him halfway through, it was not good for him to go to Tong Nian's house empty-handed. After all, he should bring her just some kind of gift. Soon, Han Shangyan came to a store and selected a bunch of gifts. Soon, he came to Tong's house. At this time, Tong's mother who opened the door was almost terrified by the full of gifts he brought. When Han Shangyan came to Tong Nian's house, Tong's mother didn't like him very much when she saw him, and said that he just had dinner together yesterday, so he didn't need to come to pay New Year's greetings today. However, Han Shangyan said that he just came to pick up Tong Nian to eat at Grandpa Han's order. When Tong Nian heard that Han Shangyan had come to pick her up, she was overjoyed and dressed herself up beautifully. Han Shangyan picked up Tong Nian into the car, but as soon as Tong Nian got in the car, she was frightened by Dai Feng who suddenly came out of the back seat of the car. The three of them went to the supermarket together to pick out New Year items. During the period, Dai Feng asked Tong Nian if Han Shangyan was cruel to her, and Tong Nian said no. Dai Feng said that was right. He had heard before that anyone who was cruel to outsiders would be gentle towards family members, and conversely, those who were cruel to family members would be cowardly to outsiders. The three of them came outside to get into the car. Han Shangyan asked Tong Nian where his car keys were, but Tong Nian didn't know. While talking, Han Shangyan brought his body close to Tong Nian, which made Tong Nian blushed immediately, thinking that Han Shangyan would want to kiss her. But at this time, Han Shangyan said sternly, the key was in his trousers pocket, and he just wanted her to get it for him. This made Tong Nian feel embarrassed all of a sudden. Soon, the three of them came to a vegetable market again. Han Shangyan selected various ingredients sharply and experienced, which made Tong Nian immediately stunned. When the three returned home, Tong Nian and Dai Feng planned to search for recipes on the internet because they had no experience in cooking. This made Han Shangyan get angry immediately, and invited them out in dissatisfaction. Soon, Wu Bai came back. Han Shangyan asked him to do it, but Wu Bai was also confused. This made Han Shangyan completely angry, and he had to start himself. In the courtyard, Tong Nian happily sang a play for Grandpa Han, and the scene was very happy. Soon, Grandpa Han walked into the back room and told Han Shangyan to help him put a necklace into the dumplings he was making, so that Tong Nian could be pleasantly surprised. That night, all the dishes were ready, and everyone sat at the table. Grandpa Han watched Tong Nian eating dumplings with joy, and wanted to see her happy appearance, but unfortunately, Tong Nian didn't eat the necklace until the end. At this time, Han Shangyan handed over a box and immediately gave the necklace to Tong Nian. It turned out that he just didn't want to use Grandpa Han's strange way of giving gifts. Tong Nian was very happy when she saw this chain. After the meal, Han Shangyan was washing the dishes. During the chat, Dai Feng jokingly said to Tong Nian that Han Shangyan was one of the three famous big devils in the team. After that, he said again, it's a pity that Han Shangyan had only lived alone for many years, and this was how he developed his skills. After the party, Han Shangyan drove Tong Nian home, but as soon as he got to her door, he was startled by Do Nan, who suddenly came out. Then Do Nan took Tong Nian back to the back room. A few days later, on the 6th day of the new year, this was the day Han Shangyan had agreed to let the players return to the team. Han Shangyan came to the team. At this time, the team members were already busy, and they were all working hard to prepare for the New Year's battle. When the team members learned that Dai Feng's vacation days were spent in Han Shangyan's house, they came to the bathroom with great interest, lifted the curtain, and at this time Dai Feng was naked, and he immediately became embarrassed. The team members asked him if he spent the New Year in Han Shangyan's house. Dai Feng gave a positive answer, and said that Han Shangyan had made dumplings for himself, which surprised everyone, and felt that the cold Han Shangyan still had such a warm side. Han Shangyan had something to go to Norway. Before leaving, he instructed the team members to train themselves well. After all, he had installed cameras in the team to supervise them. Tong Nian stayed with Yaya, and Tong Nian was excited to find that Han Shangyan had subscribed to her on social media. Soon, she called Han Shangyan again. Han Shangyan told her that he was going abroad soon. Ai Qing was surrounded by several foreigners. Han Shangyan hurried back, rushed them away, picked up a stick, and was about to fight them hard. Ai Qing was very puzzled and asked him why he could only think of using violence to solve the problem. Maybe these foreigners just didn't understand the language and wanted to have a drink with her. At this time, Xiaomi also came and stopped Han Shangyan. Han Shangyan had no choice but to flick his stick angrily and leave. Ai Qing returned to the hotel with lingering fears. After taking the cake from someone else, she was a little petty and authentic. She wanted to give Han Shangyan a good surprise, but she didn't expect things to turn out like this. Han Shangyan returned to the room when Xiaomi came over. Han Shangyan asked Xiaomi again why the team Xiaomi chose after his comeback was Solo's SP instead of his own KK. Xiaomi told him that in his mind, Solo had always been the irreplaceable captain of the Solo team, and he had vowed to fight with him until the day they retired together. In addition, Han Shangyan should also think about it. Ai Qing and Solo were a little sorry for him back then, but he shouldn't have been holding grudges until now. After venting, Xiaomi sent another cake to him, saying that it was given to him by Ai Qing, wishing him a happy birthday. Later, when he turned on his mobile phone, Han Shangyan received another birthday congratulations from Tong Nian. After putting down the phone, he lit a candle and tasted the cake alone, feeling overwhelmed all of a sudden. Han Shangyan asked Xiaomi to come out. At the bar of a bar, he met his old friend Judy, and Xiaomi immediately saw that Judy liked Han Shangyan. Han Shangyan and Xiaomi sat at a table and chatted casually. The next day, in a field, an important duel in a cybersecurity contest finally began. Many teams had gathered together to prepare for a peak competition. With the host's order, many players were divided into groups and fought in pairs to compete for the final championship. The Chinese players also participated in it and immersed themselves in the fierce competition. Oh Chang defeated his opponent, but Xiaomi lost to a strong opponent Naya, and lost in the first round. Fortunately, the other 5 Chinese players have successfully entered the next round. During the break between the games, Han Shangyan found Xiaomi who was alone and comforted him well. Xiaomi praised that Wu Bai, Han Shangyan's cousin, really did well. Ai Qing found Wu Bai, who was alone, and encouraged him to say that he hoped that he could win the world championship today. Wu Bai couldn't help revealing his love to Ai Qing. Back then, when Team Solo won the national championship, he was only a high school student, and he secretly swore that he must practice hard, and strive to win the world championship in front of her one day. Not long after, Wu Bai was ready to compete. After several rounds of competition, his opponent was Naya, who was ranked 2nd in the world. Wu Bai was the number 1 in the world. The two had never played against each other before. With an order from the host, the game started quickly. Wu Bai solved several problems one after another, and he immediately gained the upper hand in the scene, which made the audience immediately boil, but Naya was not to be outdone, and took the initiative to attack Wu Bai's server, and quickly won 3 nodes in the battle. But then Wu Bai was not idle, and immediately returned the color, which made Naya had a headache immediately. Soon, Wu Bai did not relax again, and continued to attack Naya, and finally defeated Naya at the end. At this time, the host finally announced excitedly that Wu Bai had won the championship of this game. The scene immediately turned into cheers. Tong Nian became excited when she saw the grand occasion of the competition in China. She hurriedly called Han Shangyan and congratulated him. Putting down the phone, Tong Nian was so excited that she couldn't contain herself again, and hurriedly walked to the living room to tell Dad Tong and the others the good news. Tong Nian went back to her room. At this time, the foreign competition was already preparing to issue the trophy for this competition. The host announced the awards for this competition one by one on the field, and finally announced Wu Bai as the champion of this individual competition. The scene suddenly boiled. Wu Bai and his team members raised the flag at the scene, which made the audience even more excited. And Tong Nian, who was in front of the domestic computer, also burst into tears. That night, the team members gathered in the hotel excitedly, and a reporter came excitedly and wanted to interview them. In the room, Nan Wei picked up a bottle of wine and congratulated Han Shangyan well. However, between the words, he confided again that in this competition, he seemed to clearly see that Xiaomi's performance was poor. At night, the team members were all excited when they drove outdoors. They even put on a very passionate song, humming along with the tone of the song.